Well, let's look at the policy itself.
Yes.
The fact that we're going to be collecting toll all over again.
Yes.
We had a set of reasons for saying we're not going to collect tolls.
Yes.
And now we're back to the era of we're reintroducing toll gates. I mean,
Yes.
let's forget, they can decide that we're going to have little kiosks or we're just going to have people stand on the roads and collect the toll.
Yes.
They might not necessarily build those things back again.
Yes.
So that's just one consequence of policy inconsistency, as it were.
Correct.
So how come you have no problem with the fact that that policy itself, the fact that we stopped at one point for a set of reasons and now we're introducing it again for another set of reasons? You have absolutely no problem with that.
The point you have made introduces a new factor. That is to say, why are you restoring the collection of toll gates?
Yes.
Having regard in the main to the fact that in those days, these toll gates were concessioned, so we're told, to starting people, collect this and rebuild the roads, manage the road, maintain the roads.
Which didn't work then.
Which didn't work. So now, is government going to take full charge of it or going to concession it to another group of people? So we don't know. At that time, the monies collected from these toll gates, what were they used for? What were they used for? Now we are going back to the same thing again. What is the money going to be used for? It is even like telling us today, that's why Nigerians have become apathetic, that's why we have become cynical, telling us today that, oh, we are going to withdraw fuel subsidy because we are going to use the proceeds accruing therefrom to build good schools, maintain the educational system, the good healthcare system, and all that. Some of these things are better told to the Marines. So that's why we become apathetic. That's why we become cynical.
Let's look at the Constitution a little bit. Some argue that the return of toll gates is illegal
Yes.
because of by virtue of Section 13 of the Constitution, which says that the government is obligated to provide good road networks for the people.
Yes.
And also, if you also go to Section 38, which will also negate the whole essence of freedom of movement. So how do we relate Section 13 to all of this, that they say that the government is obliged to provide good roads free of charge for the people, and now you're collecting toll with the intention of fixing the roads and the freedom of movement?
Beautiful question, but I don't think the Constitution would say provide good roads to the people free of charge. Good roads, yes, but how do you do that one? What is the modus operandi? Would depend on the way the government wants. I mean, there are toll gates everywhere in the world. So if you want good roads, you pay for it. Nothing comes free. There is no free lunch. So if you want good roads, you must also be ready to contribute towards the... And then Section 38 you're talking about, freedom of movement, has nothing, very little, if anything, to do with good roads. I mean, the government should construct roads, and it depends on the way it wants to go about it, whether it wants to appeal to the populace. Please make a contribution so that we can help you build good roads and maintain good roads. Yes, that is there. I am not opposed to the imposition of tolls on our roads, but when you collect tolls, do something with the monies you realize from that. That's my major problem. They've never done this before, and it is not likely that they will do it now. Even if we have a government that we think might be able to do something at the end of the day, I don't have any reason to believe.
Shouldn't we be thinking of making it work more efficient? You remember those days? I still cannot forget the long hours some of us have to stay on queues in some of these toll gates.
Yes.
So now we're going to bring it back in this time. Don't we deem it necessary to have gone into some kind of research to see how effective this could be?
Well, yes, there were traffic jams, the toll gates, but those were nothing to write home about. There are times when, during the course of your journey, you need to stop for some time, and then you have a breathing space. So they were not. they were nothing to compare with the traffic jams that you experience in urban areas like Lagos, Abuja, or Port Harcourt. So, traffic jams that you would see at toll gates in those days, we're not too worrisome as far as I'm concerned. The only problems that I had, the demolition of the toll gates at that time, and the fact that the tolls collected were not used for anything, because if you take a look at all our roads now, from here to Benin, then from Ibadan to Ilorin, from Ilorin to Jeba, from Jeba to Mokwa, from Mokwa to New Busa, too bad. So what were the tolls used for at that time? Now we are going to reintroduce. Okay. Who is going to take charge, and what are we going to use the monies for? Those are my problems.
Speaking of which, over the weekend, we even talked about it, the Italian Prime Minister, the new one, Mario Monti, while he was summoned by the President to come and deliver a speech or say something about what he was going to do about the economy. And then he said, we need to give our children. That just stuck out like a thumb, saying we need government, leadership. And then you look back at the country and then you ask yourself, wait a minute, these are some of the basic amenities, the basic things that were talked about in the 60s by the founding fathers. Provision of basic amenities, food, water, electricity, road.
Good education.
That's what our politicians are talking about today.
Yes.
So are we making progress in all of this? Or are we just movement, just motion and no real movement or progress?
It's when you look at the situation in Nigeria, one would want to. There is an emetic, something that causes you to vomit. In the way the government, the administrations of this country are run. Now, you were talking earlier on about the 633
education policy, yes.
Education policy, for example. Now, during my time, it used to be 2664. No, I'm sorry, 2663. It used to be like that. 2 years in the infant school, 6 years in the primary school, now 6 years in the secondary school, 2 years in an advanced, a senior secondary school where you would get your higher school certificate, HSC, and then 3 years in the university. And it was beautiful. At the risk of modesty, I could say I could look anybody straight in the face today in the subjects that I read. But it is not the same thing today. We now revert from what I just mentioned to 6 to 2 4. We abandoned that one and went to 6 3 3 4. And now we've not tested that one properly. Now they are now saying that we are now going to something queer, something that is incomprehensible. 1 6 6 3 4. What is that? It does appear to me that we are beginning to treat the symptoms rather than the effect, the cause of the disease. The symptoms, the effect is what we are now beginning to treat rather than the cause of this thing. And it's always good to reason from cause to effect. You see, for example, do we have any environment, any conducive environment in any of us primary and secondary schools or even universities, that's conducive enough to learning? Are our teachers serious? Do we motivate these teachers to be serious? If you see a teacher today, he dresses like a scarecrow. And if you are a Sloven, then you must be given a slovenly treatment, a slovenly reception. And that's what our teachers are today.
But I've heard this criticism about the way, not just leadership or the way we go about certain things, because we tend to always say we look forward to the leaders. Our leaders haven't done A, B, or C. But there are those who say it's not just about the leaders, because we are the ones who allow the kind of leaders who come up. Because if you look through some of the basic policy formulation processes, formulating a policy requires good understanding, local needs, opportunities, and constraints.
Yes.
But when you look through these policies, do we see enough intellectual depth? What about our ivory towers? What about those who've gone through these processes? Are they speaking up as much as they are, telling the authorities, no, this is not the way it ought to go, with respect to moving it forward? Or is everyone just saying, well, do what you want, we've gone through this, so it's not a business?
Yes, you see, so many things have gone wrong over the years. It's not as if people in the ivory towers or even in primary, secondary schools are not shouting enough for policymakers to take, nice actions. It's not necessarily like that. They cried havoc.
So how do we get it right?
Yes, because you see, we must go back to base, where we are coming from. For example, let's have good schools. A school, for example, a secondary school where you don't have any good library, no library. What we have in the various schools cannot be dignified with the name of library. Then we should have good laboratories for science people, where you don't have a good laboratory, and you expect somebody who is into the sciences, botany, physics, all these subjects, you want them to come out and be like those of us who studied in those days. It's not possible.